What would be the effect on this country's finances and, in fact, well-being and, well, really everything? Terrible question. If the government were to respond to this crisis with more austerity?
Well, I think, this is obviously very topical because you will have all seen today the decisions on education catch-up funding, where we previously had an estimate from the Institute for Fiscal Studies that the damage done to children's education during the pandemic could very roughly, over the next 40 years, cost the country about £350 billion. Now, this is clearly, as the researchers who produced it would tell you, a very, very rough estimate based on very back of the envelope assumptions. But it does give you an idea of the order of magnitude of the damage that you do if you knock out children's education for the best part of the year. Now, the Education Policy Institute proposed a catch-up program which would have cost about 15 billion. My estimate of how much education output was lost during the pandemic was about 30 billion. So that sort of gives you an idea of the size of the problem. And Sir Kevin Collins, we know now, proposed that the government spend about 15 billion pounds on catch-up. So all of this gives you some idea of the potential damage and the sort of near-term measures that experts think are appropriate to deal with the size of the problem, tens of billions, certainly. And yet the government is providing 1.5 billion. And I think that it is almost impossible to see what the economic justification for that decision is for only funding such a small proportion of what any reasonable estimate of what is required. Both, as I said, and this is both a social and economic case. There is a pure cost-benefit case for funding education catch-up. There's also obviously a social case in that the kids who have been most damaged by the pandemic are obviously those who are most disadvantaged because they have been least able to keep up with their studies through remote working or home learning or whatever. But I really find the government's decision on this almost incomprehensible from almost any perspective, really.